Welcome to BalletWise. My name is Michael Wise, its host and its creator. Today we have a very special thing for all of you. We will be having an interview with the Assistant Dean of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. That is a key thing because he is an individual that is steeped within this industry. He is presently working with high-end students. He is running that program. So I feel like it's important that we bring you the knowledge and the understanding that this man actually has. So let's get to it. We are very happy to have Jared Redick with us today. He is someone that I trained with back when I was at UNCSA. This is the BalletWise channel, and here we try to start conversations about what's going on in the ballet world. And it's really, really important that we try to open up the floor for people to hear what good information is, because I think, as you know, on the internet, there's a lot of information, and some of it's good and some of it's not so good. So the whole point of this is to have people hear your voice, hear what your thoughts are, and try to enter into that conversation for people to understand that, look, this is really what the industry is, and these are kind of requirements, and these are the things we have to think about. So, Jared, would you be willing to introduce yourself? Because I think you have done enough in your life that I'll probably mess it up.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Michael. It's always good to be on with you and talk with you and hear your perspectives on the ballet world. For those who don't know me, my name is Jared Redick. I am currently the Assistant Dean of Ballet at University of North Carolina School of the Arts, formerly known as NCSA, or known as NCSA to many people around the world as well. I was a professional dancer for 20 years in the ballet world. I started my career in San Francisco Ballet, spent a large portion of my career at Miami City Ballet, and the largest portion of my career as a soloist up at Boston Ballet, which was just a real pleasure. During that time, of course, I was also dancing with Suzanne Farrell's company, Suzanne Farrell Ballet, probably for about approximately 7 years, a kind of a project-based situation with her company. So I was very fortunate to dance everything from a lot of works in San Francisco, but certainly a lot of the Balanchine repertory and canon in Miami City Ballet and with Suzanne. And then at Boston, we did everything under the sun, from Jorma Ello's works to certainly Petipa, certainly the big classical ballets, and way beyond that. And now I've been teaching for, about 25 years, but at School of the Arts for the last 12 years. Real privilege to be there. Back where I began my training.
Well, great. Now, one of the big questions I was going to have for you is, what do you see is the big difference between the way we were trained and what our expectations were compared to the way children today have to be trained and what their expectations should be?
Well, I think a lot of things have changed in a very positive way since the time that we were training. I know that our generation of teachers and dance educators are now really focused on training and teaching our students in a more holistic way. We want it to be a healthier environment. So I kind of think about the teaching methodologies have become a little bit more, or hopefully a lot more, safer environments for our students to train within. Hopefully the languaging has changed. I make a big effort, and I know our entire faculty at school, we make a big effort to make sure our languaging is very inclusive, to make students feel like they belong in the studio regardless of their background. Certainly, maybe some of the harsher methodologies and teaching practices have gone by the wayside. Certainly what we do now. We want our kids, there's how we place our hands on the students, for instance. We're very interested in making sure our students have more agency in the classroom, in the teaching and learning experience, as well as having more of a voice, which is a very different approach and a very different idea coming into the studio. And we've had great success with that in our program where I teach. And I know that my colleagues around the dance world do that as well. Certainly there's lots of stories about, my generation and previously generations before, the trope the stereotype of the ballet teacher with the cane going around and whacking students with the cane. You know, that's just not going to fly nowadays. And certainly,
Oh, come on, a little that can't hurt. I mean, just
well, well, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of problems with that. But you know, I think we've made a great effort to change that, and I think that we're trying to make the art form more accessible to more identities. And which is a wonderful thing, and you see it around the dance world as people work to adjust not just their methodology, but you see companies um, seeking out and amplifying more diverse voices in the repertory. So we're not just stuck in the 19th century, but we're really looking forward, but not just from one maybe Eurocentric viewpoint, but from a more diverse viewpoint of dance in general.
do you see companies specifically? Like, I understand that we're looking to try to open up the ballet world into being a far more diverse area. And I think we're all 100% in agreement. But what I've noticed recently that we've kind of even pushed up against with some of our students is the height. Height is becoming more and more of a problem that I'm noticing where, like back when we were dancing, I don't even know if I could get a job today because so many companies are going, well, we see all these perfect bodies and that's all they're looking for. Where back when we were dancing, there was a lot more personality. There was a lot more into what we were doing. I'm not saying that's completely gone away, but I'm just kind of hoping that we can try to kind of move things into a direction where there are some brilliant dancers out there that are in that 5'1" to 5'3" range. And I think even when you were in San Francisco, you saw those types of dancers excel and do beautiful works. But I just see companies now going, nope, never mind. And they just want to move on because they think of, well, I can have one short dancer instead of those other areas. But that's just something I'm noticing. I think we still have a long way we have to go when it comes to diversity. I'm just glad to know that the school is actually making a real effort at it because it has to change, I think, down in the trenches before it's going to change completely up in the top areas.
Well, I mean, there are many things that you just mentioned. I'll try and touch on as many of them as I can. In terms of what we do at School of the Arts, certainly a lot of the conversation. What I personally think is, especially in higher education, right? In academia, in our conservatory focused program, we do have the luxury of having this fabulous space. We have 10 studios and 3 theaters that our students get to work in. I like to think that this next generation of dancers that we're training, not just as dancers, but as human beings and citizen artists, I like to think that it's going to be the tail wagging the dog. So the kids that we are training today will go out in the field and make the broader changes that we've already implemented in terms of their training and the methodologies that we use. So that's how I think it's a longer game. It's not going to happen, the diversity that we would love to see more celebrated and amplified on our stages. We certainly would like to see that happen instantly, but this is a more systemic problem. So we have to think in longer terms in the 5 and the 10-year ranges. As far as in terms of companies having dancers of different heights and whatnot, I think what I see now, which I think is really interesting, is that even though I've heard it said that there's less opportunity or it's more competitive now than when I was dancing, I actually think it's a little different. I think I have a different take on that. I see that there are far more smaller companies all around the United States in particular. I'm not going to talk about Europe and beyond, that do have dancers of all shapes and sizes. And so I think that there's a lot of other opportunities for dancers to find jobs. And now they might not be the biggest companies with the longer contracts, the 36-week contracts and above, but there is a place for them to dance. So I do see that happening. That's been the case for a long time. The arts are always, or the nonprofits, I shouldn't say just the arts, but nonprofits and dancing specifically, it's a hard row to hoe, so to speak, in terms of funding. We're always scrambling after resources in the nonprofit sector in the dance world. So that's always a challenge. Will continue to be a challenge until we find a model that is maybe more commercial in some ways, right? It's that balance between how do you forward the art form, how do you fund the art form.
Okay. No, thanks. I'm glad to have heard that, because I agree there are some of those smaller companies, but I mean, just like I think everyone understands, not every company is the right fit for every dancer.
Yeah.
And so people need to be aware that you have to do your, check on those companies, follow through, understand what their repertoire is, who are the people that are working there, because you don't want to walk into something blind and end up hating it, because that's not what we are about. That's not what dance is supposed to be about. But okay, so the next thing I'd like to ask you is just basically, it's still in the same lines of today. If you had to sit down with someone that, was a dancer, very talented, that wanted to look at you and say, what do I need to focus on if I want to be a professional dancer? What are like those key characteristics that I need to be focusing on?
Well, I mean, of course, depends on the age of the dancer you're talking about. But in general, what's really going to carry any dancer or any let's just talk about ballet dancers because that's my
Yeah.
area of expertise. Any ballet dancer, and I hear this, I'm very fortunate to um, be an adjudicator, a judge, a master teacher at Youth America Grand Prix, and we're a partner school with the Prix de Lausanne. So I have the good fortune to talk with school directors, company directors from across the globe every year. So what everyone is looking for, just like we want in the studio, they want that really clean foundational training. We want to strengthen that foundational training as much as possible. No one wants to have an affected dancer. Now, that being said, there are stylistic differences amongst the companies. So you'll have a very different idea of, certainly the foundational training is there, but if you're looking at New York City Ballet versus American Ballet Theater versus Pacific Northwest versus Miami City Ballet, they all want slightly different. You have more of the Balanchine aesthetic is going to want a certain foundational understanding of what the repertory is going towards. You might have in the Balanchine neoclassical style, you're going to have maybe more speed, more musicality highlighted. Again, I don't want purists to come at me from the ABT side of things, because we all want that as well in terms of musicality as well. But there certainly are maybe differences in the port de bras for sure, but not. But these are nuances, right? When you're talking that highest level of training, students who are probably 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 in that range who are looking for jobs, and I would say now most companies are looking 17, 18, 19, a little bit older. They want that strong foundation so that they can build on those dancers and work with them and mold them into what the company is trying to achieve artistically. So I think listen to your teachers, be around the best teachers you possibly can. Big summer intensives are great to get a feel for what's going on in the broader dance world. And this generation is so fortunate with the amount of information that's available to them through social media, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Insta, whether it's TikTok. You can see what's going on in companies. You can see the top choreographers creating in the studios. Companies will certainly put those clips out through the company, which is amazing to watch. I see it all the time. I love to watch snippets of company class and see who's in class and who's teaching class, and what do the dancers look like. So I think that's a great resource for these younger dancers.
Oh, no. That's, excellent. Because we've even touched on how social media has its good and its negatives. And sometimes being able to get the right advice of understanding where I should be looking for the right information on social media compared to what I would refer to as the more superficial information that's on the internet. But now, what is it and why is it? And I personally know, because I trained at UNCSA, you trained there. What is it about UNCSA, and why has it just continuously produced some of the top dancers for our industry just as for as long as we can remember. What is it? What is that formula? Why is it working and may not be working for other schools?
Sure. Again, I would say, at UNCSA, we're very privileged. The resources of the school are there, and that doesn't mean that the school we're a state school. We're one of the 17 constituent schools in the UNC system in North Carolina. But you look at our facilities. How amazing is it that we have 10 studios and we have 3 theaters that our students get to work with, as well as because we're a school of the arts, we also have the design and production school that does all our sets, and they crew all of our shows, and we have our own wardrobe department. So when you look at those kinds of resources supporting the artistic endeavor and the training of our kids, then we can, year in, year out, we bring students in and we train them up. I think a big thing that we focused on since I got here 12 years ago now. I was hired by now artistic director of American Ballet Theater, Susan Jaffe. We had so many conversations and continue to have those conversations with our new dean, Endelyn Taylor Outlaw, about technique and the consistency of our training and how important that is for our students. So I think that contributes greatly to the ability to be consistent and to every year in, year out, just keep training the dancers at as high a level as we possibly can. And for us, we know we're going to have students of varying abilities, like every school has that. It doesn't matter to us. We're really happy to work with students of wherever they are in their training journey, and just hope to scaffold them to a place where they continue to improve and grow, not just as young dancers, but as young artists and human beings. So I think, and again, really one of the greatest resources of UNCSA is our facilities and the faculty and the support that the system provides for us.
Yeah, one of my biggest frustrations is when people look at a program or teachers and going, oh, no, I can't go there. I'm not good enough. They don't understand that in this industry, the way you get good enough is to go and get better, go work with those people. That's an integral thing that people kind of get misstrued, is they don't think that they are worthy enough to go into these high-end programs. But the reality is, for them to be worthy, they need to go into those programs and work and develop. And that's just something that I know that that at UNCSA, they've always done that. I mean, with the high school program, the college program, those were all things. I mean, we were both there in the high school periods, but it's the same thing even with the college kids. They're still getting the same level of training. That's something that I think is a little bit different than a lot of other places. But I just want to thank you for doing this. I think it's important that with the information that's out there, that sometimes conversations with industry individuals is really important for them to hear what really is going on and what they need to be doing and how they need to be applying themselves. We're getting up there. We're not going to go and put a pair of tights back on. And, that's one thing I swear I will never do again. But it is one of those things where we're trying to help that next generation have the same opportunities we had. And it's just a joy to be in a position to help in those individuals to kind of open their eyes. And, I know Ballet for You has given you pretty much everything. Mm-hmm. And I know Ballet for Me has given me everything. And I just want others to have that same opportunity. But once again, I really want to thank you for doing this. This really, I think, is going to be helpful. And I hope people will also take some time and look at UNCSA and look at what they're doing and why they are just one of those storied programs that just keeps producing high-end talent and wonderful individuals year after year after year.
What I failed to mention in terms of why do we continue to produce, my mom was my ballet teacher. So I had her until I was through 9th grade in high school. And then she sent me away to UNCSA to be around classes full of boys. that because it was me and my brother at her school, and she sent us away. But one of the things that I always say to young dancers, and certainly parents, I talk to parents all the time. One of the real perks of coming to UNCSA is that we have the academics, both high school and college. They're integrated into our schedule, so you're not running you're not going to your normal school, your high school during the day, and then running somewhere across town, maybe even further. I've heard, I know when I was at Boston, I had students coming an hour away to come and take classes. So it's all right there. All of the rehearsals are there, which allows for a lot to occur on the campus. And so you gain a lot of time. But they can also focus on their core academics, which we think are so important for for every dancer, at any moment in time. Education is so important. You can't be a great artist without being deeply educated in obviously the academic classes, but also beyond that. What is the world bringing to you that's going to inform your worldview as you start interpreting roles and bringing that artistry to the next level. The other thing I could say about UNCSA is we're very fortunate. We've had 8 Prix de Lausanne candidates in the last 11 years, and which is something we're very fortunate to have those dancers move forward into the Prix de Lausanne, which is just wonderful.
Oh, no. I was fortunate enough to do the Prix de Lausanne for representing the school back in 1987, 88. Okay. And it is one of those things those are memories I will never, ever be able to forget. I still have the sweatshirt from back in that time period. It looks ragged these days, but it's still there. And Ron, real simple question. And I think all dancers, probably should be asked this question. What's one thing you wish you would have learned in school that you learned in the industry? Something you wish you would have learned. I know for me, I wish we had classes on how to promote ourselves, because we were at the time period where there wasn't social media, but then we started entering into the early stages of social media. So having that classes and just basically self-promotion, because today you can't be really a super successful dancer unless you're actually trying to self-promote as well as the companies you're in. So, yeah.
I mean, that's certainly a valid point. It's different. There's lots of more global platforms out there, obviously through social media, through the web, etc. Something I wish I'd learned. This is certainly a deeper conversation. When you're a young dancer in your teens or early 20s, I wish I had the emotional maturity that I learned later on in life. To be able to really look at where I was at that moment and to be kind to myself in terms of my training, to certainly push myself, but to certainly reduce or limit the amount of negative self-talk, which becomes there's study after study about how detrimental that is to your mental health and your well-being. And certainly that's doubly and triply so for dancers who spend their entire days looking in the mirror. So instead of focusing on those negatives about your training, really look at yourself and I did my best today. I move forward a little bit more today than I did yesterday. I think those incremental steps, just like anything in life, that's such an important skill to learn, because it is a skill. It's not just going to magically appear. You really have to work on that and really be cognizant of the impact of how your mental disposition is each day, how that's impacting what you're doing in your life and in your training and in your academic pursuits and in just your relationships with your people and with people and your family and your friends. So that's something that's a deeper thing I wish I had, I'd been able to do at a much younger age. I would have been set up. It would have saved a lot of heartache throughout my early training days, and certainly my early company days as well, because I think it was even magnified when I first got in the company as a young student. I think, the other thing I would say along with that is, for young dancers, I tell all of the kids who graduate and go on to the career or whatever it is, like, reach out to us as your mentors and your faculty to let us help support you, especially when you're having a hard time or you have questions. I just had a good friend of mine, a former partner, reach out to me, very prominent dancer in the dance world, asking for advice about a certain career thing, which is, it's so much fun to have those conversations, but also to be an objective person, maybe a little subjective, but an objective person to just like, hey, I hear what you're saying. Let me help you let me at least be a sounding board for you so you can make the best decision for yourself. And I wish our students, when they go out, or young dancers or these young people, they really would rely on or use their teachers, their directors, their coaches as a resource, because we all want them to succeed. We want them to do better and have a bigger career and a better career in whatever they choose to do than we did. You just want them to just stand on our shoulders, take the next step beyond what we did. And there's nothing more fulfilling than that.
Oh, no, gosh. But I think you just described the difference between someone that is just a teacher and someone that is actually more of a mentor as well as a teacher, because, we put so much of ourselves into students, and then we want to maintain that connection. We want to still be there. I mean, I've had dancers that have gone on to their careers and then they get injured and they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I've already had a major injury. That's how my career ended. But for me to be able to walk them through that, talk them through that, is more than it's a huge support for them mentally, but also it kind of goes, I'm not alone. And that, I think, is really key and important, especially for anyone, whether you're in the arts or out of the arts, but knowing you have those individuals that just care, that are willing to listen, and sometimes, give you some good information, but just being present, I think, is so important, especially in this industry.
Yeah, of course.
So, but Jared, once again, thank you so much. This has been a joy. I know that now that we've all been able to reconnect, I hope I'll get an opportunity to see you and possibly work with you again. And if that's basically it, I really appreciate this.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Michael. It's always good talking with you. Wish you the best as always, and your students. I'm sure they're very privileged to have you and all of your knowledge and all the training that you can provide for them. So
I think they're more interested in the crazy, but
okay, to each his own.
To each his own, exactly. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview. Jared is a friend and a colleague. He is an individual that is on the ground floor of all the changes that are happening in the ballet world, because he has an integral part in hopefully producing some of those changes. If you liked this, please give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, give us those comments. We'll be more than happy to answer you. So, my name is Michael Wise. This is BalletWise. Be the best person you can be and keep dancing. Bye.